919 FM, your morning of impact. Samm Marshall shares uplifting stories and conversations with people making Johannesburg and the world a better place.
Yeah, we're having conversations with people that are making the world a better place. You know, we do this Mondays to Fridays, 9 to 12. Now, today's guest, many of you will know. If I say the name, let me say the name. Jack Devnarain. I don't even have to say it loud. I just have to whisper it. You know it. He's well known for TV and for film. But I'm going to have a chat to him for something completely different. Now, I know you know him for acting. I know that you know that he is obviously a man about town. But did you know he's deeply involved in community work, mentoring, leadership development, and cultural transformation? Did you know he's the chairman of the South African Guild of Actors? He's a motivational speaker. He's a champion for creatives. And he has led various initiatives around youth development. Jack, I don't think they knew that.
No, I mean, you also make it sound really super important, and you give me a title and all of that. And you don't feel as if you're carrying a title when you do all these things. You feel like you're connecting with people, and you can see an opportunity for them, or you maybe just want to remind them how exceptional they really are.
Yeah, because I think sometimes what happens, you get boxed, right? I don't know if you've experienced this. You get boxed as the actor, as the film guy.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we do a disservice because people don't know that. Even I'll tell people. So this morning I come in, Jack is in a meeting, right, with a whole bunch of individuals. And what they're doing is, in partnership with the EPF Tech Fund, you're literally changing the lives of young people.
Yeah.
And I think people they kind of see you one way, but they don't actually know the stuff that really drives you, the gees that you have for South Africa.
That's true. And people are often so enamored by this idea of being on screen.
Yeah.
People assume that that's the end goal. And I've never seen it like that. Maybe at a certain point in my career. It's
but
like,
in the early days, right?
Act. Yeah,
in the early days.
Early days, you're a young man, you see yourself as a performer, you train, you develop the skills to be a serious performer, and so you earn a living as that. But as you age,
although you look 24.
Come on.
You look like a silver fox.
I love getting older, Sam. I love it.
Talk to me about this journey, though, because I love this idea that you're saying, when you're younger, there's a mission, there's a particular idea.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you think about kind of legacy. What is my contribution? Because, I mean, it can't be easy being the chairman of the South Africa's Guild and getting involved in all the politics.
Yeah.
And because there's a crap load of politics behind the scenes.
Yeah, and you learn it. And again, as you age, you start to develop the capacity to manage those things. And I think the best way to put it is to say you realize that your career on screen wasn't an end in itself. It was actually the means to a bigger end.
Yeah, and in the beginning of sometimes, right?
Yeah.
To something broader and bigger.
Really, and I now I look back and I realize that, my career on TV and film was actually there to service a much bigger agenda. But that agenda wasn't clear to me at the time I started, right?
Yeah.
Now I can look back and I can say, that's why it helped me to establish a personality, to become, I suppose I could have called it, becoming a household name. But that was merely to service a much bigger plan, and that plan was to remind people of the value that they have as creatives and how we need to establish the rules for what an industry should be.
Yeah. It's so weird. I didn't know this, but tell me a little bit. Do you have a law background, or and policing?
Yeah, well, I did an undergrad degree in law. That was my. I
didn't know that.
I went to university and I just did the undergrad law. I didn't have the money to continue, but as it turned out, that wasn't the problem. It wasn't a problem because I'm young, I'm a physical kind of guy, I love connecting with people, I'm interested in law, and the prospect of law enforcement became more interesting to me at that point than another 2 or 3 years in deep legal studies.
Yeah.
So law enforcement became the avenue, and of course, being now, my early 20s, I want to start earning money. You want to start life, you want to own your car, you want to,
the
be a
kind
serious
of standard
partner.
stuff.
Yeah. And also coming out of, where the journey that my family had been on, it was important to me that I wanted to contribute to my family. And
it's almost kind of dictated socially that at a certain point you start thinking about the value you add to your family.
You do, and I think you must.
Yeah, I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
After the age of 18, I thought I was also obsessed with contributing,
Yeah, and also because you're reminded that you've been a passenger long enough.
But in a delightful moments,
Yes. Hey, happy birthday! Why don't you buy your own present?
Those delightful moments. But I'm going to argue, Jack, that if you were studying law undergraduate and you had this drive to be kind of policing and make impact, that maybe this thing that you're doing now, this purpose-driven existence, started back then, but it wasn't as concretized and it wasn't as evident and visual as it is now.
Yeah,
but
you're
you've
right.
already kind of placed the stepping stones.
It was work in progress back then, even though I couldn't see it back then. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, you think, oh, so that's why I made those choices.
Yeah.
But I've always been driven by the need to address the injustices I see in our country. And of course, in those years, I mean, growing up in the 70s, going to school in the 80s, I don't think I was really confronted with the harshest realities of apartheid. And my parents shielded us a lot from what they had experienced when they were younger. But it was still apparent because, as communities and as race groups, we were treating each other in the 80s and 90s with enormous suspicion. And you could literally see people with incredible potential
But that
being
was
held back.
orchestrated by design.
It was totally engineered.
Yeah.
Totally engineered. And the question was, how do we re-engineer this?
Yeah.
How do we create the structure so that there
And I
is
think
parity?
that's what you're doing now. If you just join us, of course you're listening to Gauteng's official Feel Good radio station. We're having a chat to Jack Devnarain. But we're not talking to him in the context of an actor and being a thespian and all of that stuff. If you don't know this, Jack is actually he's a bit of a tree hugger. He is all about building leadership, community impact, and right now he's building alongside with his partners this massive I think you're building a massive opportunity for young people.
Yeah.
You're building a massive opportunity for the industry, and it's kind of the stuff that you're cooking in the kitchen that's not evident. So I wanted to call him in today, and I wanted to have a chat to him about in this champion edition, because I consider him to be a champion, not just for the work that he's done on camera, but for the stuff that I get to see behind the scenes. And I wanted to have a chat to him about that. What does it take to think like you? Because I think it's easy for you. You could just coast on being Jack Devnarain. You could literally just coast, go work overseas, get jobs. But like I said, the politics of wanting to change an industry, the politics of wanting to build an industry, the politics of wanting to build a tree so but somebody else can sit under the shade. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that most people just kind of move away from and say, I'm not interested in that. So what does it take to think like you?
I suspect it's spent the years that I spent in the film and TV production industry has given me a very keen sense of how people are cheated out of what is theirs. And I know you do the same thing. You model yourself on the way our industry leaders who came before us have taught us about the principles and values that you should be you should embody in the way you conduct yourself and your work. And with that is how the industry is imbued with the right kind of values. And I had seen that, and I was very sensitive to that. You learn from your elders, you respect your elders, and I started to realize that the industry wasn't taking the lessons that it should have, even though we were surrounded all the time.
Very good point.
And there was no reason for that.
We didn't learn from the predecessors, right?
Even though they were there in front of us.
And you would find a guy coming through the ranks, and when he got in that position, he mirrored the behavior.
Yeah.
Instead of charting a new course, he mirrored the behavior.
He went up into a senior position, became producer, commissioning editor, head of TV at whatever broadcaster, and this person becomes a different species altogether. And you think, but I know you. I know where you come from. Are you sure you want to behave like this in front of the people that supported you? And that injustice for me was reason enough to say, I have another project here, and it speaks to the reason why I felt I had to belong to the Actors Guild in order to organize and mobilize our and articulate our grievances. Part of it was really I had to learn, in part of the project of becoming part of SAGA, I had to learn how to become an activist. It wasn't instinctive. For a lot of people, it is.
Okay.
And I wished I had access to just.
I kind of love that, Jack, because you don't know the rules then.
I don't know the rules. I wish I did. And
because you haven't been molded and browbeaten over years of having to walk in line. So you're kind of moving from the seat of your pants, what feels right, what lived experience, talking to others. You've got an open door policy then.
And I'm a very conventional kind of guy. I play by orthodox rules of social engagement. And now I'm in a position where I've got to learn to break some of them in order to achieve the objective as an activist. And so, of course, it was terrifying. But it's times like that you wish, if I was just born like 5 years, 10 years earlier, I would have been amongst the wild activists of the time. The people who are not afraid to get locked up, the people who stood and showed the bird to the security branch and they said, I know you're going to lock me up. I
don't care.
Yeah. And that kind of pluck, that's what we had around us in our communities growing up. And, again, our parents, for their own reasons, shielded us from that. And then I found myself going back full circle to say, but I need to know that. I need to learn how to become that kind of activist in order to address the injustice in the creative industry.
I have these conversations. We decided to have these conversations in this month because I just think they're just a bunch of champions. People that are just, they're not outwardly publicly champions, but they are championing causes and they've got a champion mindset. I want to ask you in the context of 2025 and your lived experience, but in the context of so many changes in the industry, so many, like you've said, the rules have actually changed, whether you're aware of them or not. What kind of mindset should a champion have now?
I think we need to remind ourselves of the value of human engagement, because in many senses, a lot of the work that we do, that you do and the work that I do, whether it's on radio or whether it's on screen, there's an existential threat that we are facing because of artificial intelligence. And a lot of people who are driven by profit imperatives are saying, we actually don't need to have Jack or Sam around anymore. We've already captured their voices. We captured their image, their likeness, their performance. We can replicate that. We don't need their permission. We don't need to compensate them. We're just going to replace them. And in many parts of the industry, that's already happening. So the question is, what are we going to do about that? To a certain extent, that kind of evolution of technology is critical for our survival.
I get what you're saying.
So we've just got to decide, but what are the rules here so that it's being applied equitably and that people are still being valued for their humanity? Are we still protecting the values that are important to us as human beings? So
what do you think we should be doing? Because look, I remember, and I know you know this, there was a moment where our taxi drivers, they were fighting the idea of technology.
Yes.
And it was unfortunately a wave that you couldn't stop. Right? And it's here now, and government is trying to play catch up, and they're sitting around the table, and what should the rules of engagement be? What areas should be a pickup area? How do we negotiate fares? All of these things. And then we've seen this horrible story a couple of weeks ago and somebody being murdered. And I would argue that AI is here. There's nothing that's going to stop it.
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking, as a leader, what is your battle? Because to take all of it, like you said, to take all of it on is going to be a nightmare. You'll never win. But as a leader in the industry, a leading voice in this space, what battle is the thing that concerns you or the one that you're championing?
The way to understand it is that there's something intrinsic about the human creative impulse that needs to be protected. So even as we contemplate how do we regulate AI, and AI is just an example here.
There are many others.
if you want to talk disruptive technology, it depends how far back you want to go. There was a time when VHS was disruptive technology.
I was literally talking about it. I was yesterday, 2 days ago, I was talking about 1991. We had Mr. Video. We don't have Mr. Video anymore.
I haven't missed that though, in a funny way. But disruptive technologies will come and go. The question is, what are we trying to protect, and what areas of our lives are we trying to solve for? That is leading to this next generation of technology. So in the case of AI, I would simply say we need to remember the 3 C's. And this is part of the international regulatory structure anyway. You have to have some kind of control, however you want to control it, whether it's by contract or by policy. You need to give consent.
Yeah.
So if somebody's going to use my image, or you want to teach a large language model the content of my work, I need to give consent to that too.
Very interesting. I've never thought of that.
And the final C is compensation. You need to compensate me for the work that I do, for the substance of the work that I do, or if you want to use my image and likeness.
And we've seen YouTube being taken to court in other parts of the world.
That's right.
We've seen Google Alerts being taken to court. So I think even Spotify has been criticized for the way it distributes its music. I think Snoop Dogg, what was it, a year ago, said, how can you have 1 billion streams and you only make this amount of money?
Fair question.
And it's not, but I also think these are people that understand the system, and they have designed a product to disrupt and also to almost hurt the industry in a way.
Yeah, well, if you are pursuing profit above all else, you're going to damage things.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of being a savage. If you want to do that, then you are going to kill an industry or kill a part of it. You're not going to kill human creativity, but your quest for profit at all costs is going to come at a bigger price.
And there's no win-win situation in that. Eventually, it will even hurt your margins.
Yeah, it will.
For people that don't know, and I'm not asking you to wrap up your CV, I've mentioned some of it, but what are you actively involved in at the moment?
I'm working with Ferguson Media, which is a media tech company working within the bigger ecosystem of the Empire Partner Foundation. So we are very tech-focused, we are very youth-focused, we are focused on solutions to public sector problems. We want to tell good stories, because you would know, Sam, working in radio, there is already a monopoly on the telling of stories of crime, violence, corruption and scandal. We get that.
We get it. I agree. We get it. I agree with you.
There's an avalanche of that every single moment you turn into media. We want to tell the other side of that story, which is, what are the solutions? Where do you as a member of your community have agency? And for us, that is where the salvation of our country lies, not just our country, for the world. And we need to appreciate the role of technology in giving people agency in order to solve real problems. And those are the stories that we are telling. And so we are deploying our workforce of young entrepreneurs, young, fresh, creative thinkers who love working in technology. And we want to reach out into communities and talk about the people with the small victories that become victory, big victories. And we want to tell the stories about the waste pickers who are doing something to serve our environment.
I love that.
And that's just an example. There's so many people who are doing so many things in education and all that.
And I think the data now, Jack, tells us you are what you consume. And if you're consuming negativity, if you're consuming this isn't working, if you're consuming the kind of information that tells you that you'll always be the underdog, that you will never triumph, that the human interest connection that we have is all transactional. If you're consuming that level of content, that's kind of the output. That's what you're putting out in the world. And I think what you guys are trying to do is, if you understand the core principles of where content comes from, and content comes from conflict, disaster, finances, sex, weather, you're talking about progress and development, human interest, you're building the underdog, kind of the stuff that we love watching in movies, by the way. So
true. And it's the kind of stuff that is intrinsic to you if you find yourself in the media space, because what we do is to communicate. We love reaching across barriers through sound waves, through broadcast wavelengths, and we look for ways to use media to communicate with as wide and as diverse an audience as possible. And for me, this is just another opportunity to do that. We really want to tell those stories, because the story that you hear today that inspires you is going to encourage you to do something special in your world, however big that world might be. And those are the ripples in the pond that start to create change. We need to create an entire a way of thinking. We need to create a culture of that, to celebrate victories, to celebrate success, entrepreneurship, good ideas, and to change the language that a person uses when they speak to themselves inside their own minds.
Yeah. So we've got community champions, corporate champions, we have sports champions, you name them. We've got champions within family. When I say that, as a final question, what do you think is the common trait of a champion?
I never thought about that. Because I
consider you a champion. So,
thank you. Yes.
So what is the common trait that you share with all the other champions?
I suspect it is about impact. Because
I love that, by the way.
Yeah. Because I see champions everywhere I look, and
we do, right?
Yeah,
we do.
It so depends on how you define that. But I think the people that are recognized for the champion label, whatever that might mean, is simply that they are able to exert greater influence and have greater impact because they work harder at driving the changes that they want to see. So it becomes an agenda that drives them in there every day. And for me, that's very much what I do.
Love that.
Every day. I need to be connecting with our interns, with the younger people. I need to be developing the programs. And that is literally my job, is to make sure that the message is going out there. We are harvesting the ideas that we want to promote and distribute across our media space. So that's why I think this work now is so fulfilling for me.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I always say on the show, if you listen to the show, it's easier to build a rocket ship than to change someone's life. It's very difficult. There's a blueprint for a rocket ship, but there isn't a blueprint to change someone's life.
Very true.
Sir, love talking to you. That's Jack Devnarain. We consider him a champion. We do it every day. We talk to champions, and we can have endless conversations about the TV stuff. But I think it's important that he's an activist. He's a motivational speaker. He's a champion for creatives. He leads various initiatives. He's running massive youth development programs, and it's all about. This is during the day. We don't know what he does at night. When we come back, we'll have a chat to Charmaine Supramani. We're part of the Wealth Zen. And the Wealth Zen we do every Tuesdays. It is so that we can all live a wealthier life.